Now, Executive Suites with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about a company I bet almost everyone watching has heard of, but you might not know a lot about, and you might not know how big their presence is in Rhode Island, and it's about to get bigger. That company is Amgen, and I am joined by Amgen's Vice President and Rhode Island Site Head. That's what they call the person who runs the campus in our location, and that is Tia Bush. Tia, thank you for being with me.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
So let's start. As I said, I bet most people have heard Amgen. Maybe they have used Amgen products, maybe they've seen your signs if they are down in West Greenwich, but they may not have a full grasp of the company's work and its scale, its size. Can you give the viewers a quick primer so they know everything we're talking about?
Sure. So Amgen is the world's largest biotechnology facility, or company. We are actually located in, our headquarters is located in Thousand Oaks, California, and we have been around for more than 35 years. Our mission is to serve patients and help patients that really have grievous illnesses. And so the work that we do is really identifying and bringing innovative medicines to those patients in need.
Across the spectrum of different kinds of diseases and illnesses and...
Yes, absolutely. So, we have focused in specific therapeutic areas, including cardiovascular, inflammation, hematology, nephrology. So we really do look at where are their patient needs and unmet medical needs, and how can we take our science to be able to deliver those medicines.
So let's talk about your Rhode Island work at Amgen. The company, you've actually been here almost 2 decades now. Campus, as I said, down in West Greenwich has a longer history. It was Immunex, for those with long memories. Amgen took over that company and inherited it and has made a lot of changes. So talk about how big your Rhode Island footprint is today and what you do down there.
Sure. So our manufacturing site in West Greenwich is 75 acres. We have one of the world's largest manufacturing facilities, with certainly a manufacturing success rate that is second to none. We have about 625 staff members, full-time employees, and we really do focus on primarily on the manufacturing of Enbrel as well as other products, and we have really been driving towards being a multi-product facility over the last 5 to 10 years, so that we can continue to serve a very important need in Amgen's manufacturing network.
And Enbrel, that has been a big seller over the years. Remind folks what that drug does, which has been made, the Rhode Island facility has been core to that over the years for Amgen.
Sure. So Enbrel is a very important medicine. It is used to treat rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, other indications within the inflammation. For us, for those of us that have worked at the Rhode Island facility, being able to hear the patients' testaments around how it has really improved the quality of their lives is what I think is very motivating and energizing to us, because it really has made a difference.
And the facility, I understand that operates, I think, 24 hours a day. What's sort of a typical day like, or maybe a typical worker's shift like? I know there's people doing a lot of different things, but sort of take people inside a little bit.
Sure. So the manufacturing facility is 24/7. Making these important medicines are complex. They are not simple to do. It does require not only that we meet very rigorous regulatory requirements, but that we also are maintaining the facility from a cleanliness, aseptic standpoint. So the typical operation starts with our manufacturing associates who take a single vial of cells, and we grow those cells in multiple stages in small to medium to large bioreactors under the appropriate conditions where they're going to produce the protein. At a certain time point, we pull those cells, we harvest them, and then we purify the protein, where then we freeze it, where we will eventually ship it to a formulation and filling facility typically our Puerto Rico facility, where that medicine will then be put into the appropriate presentation for the patients.
How long is the process to get from when you start off what you just said to maybe when they're putting it together in Puerto Rico before heading out the door?
Yeah, so I think people would be amazed at just how complex that process is. It can take several months before, if you were to count each stage, it's going to take several months before that medicine would be available for patients. Not only the rigor around the manufacturing process, but we do have quality testing requirements to demonstrate that the material meets the safety and efficacy for the patients. And then obviously we need to make certain that we go through those multiple stages.
I have to ask, because you brought it up, was your Puerto Rico facility affected at all by the natural disasters they've had down there?
Yeah, so certainly Hurricane Irma was a pretty significant event. I'm pleased to say that our manufacturing facility survived. We have tremendous leadership. I think the business continuity plans that Amgen put in place really assured that that important facility was not interrupted in being able to supply important medicine. So, within a short amount of time, the site was back up and running, and I think it really just speaks to the dedication and commitment of Amgen staff members. They do what it takes because, our mission to serve patients is just woven into the work and to the culture that we have at the company.
All right, I want to talk about, and this will definitely go into the next segment. You're here in part because we're talking in September 2018. You just announced a big expansion of the campus in West Greenwich. I know you're very excited about us. Yes. Tell us the headline on what you guys are planning.
Sure. So Amgen announced that Rhode Island was selected as our next generation biomanufacturing facility. And for those of us in Rhode Island, we are very excited because we believe that the work that we've done over the last 15 years to demonstrate the reliability and efficiency, the skilled workforce who are dedicated to doing what it takes, as well as the quality of life that Rhode Island offers to those that work at the company, really set us apart. U.S. tax reform, I think, made it possible for companies like Amgen to invest in the U.S. for manufacturing capabilities. But for us, for those of us that have been part of the Rhode Island operation, we're excited that we're going to be able to bring new manufacturing technologies, that we are going to be able to deploy the most innovative manufacturing processes that Amgen has. And upon that, we're going to be able to expand the products that we make and continue to provide new capabilities to the manufacturing network at Amgen.
Well, I'm sure viewers have a million more questions they want to hear about that, and we're going to ask them all after we take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Tia Bush about Amgen and its upcoming expansion in Rhode Island. Stick with us. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and we are talking today with Tia Bush. She is a vice president at Amgen and the Rhode Island site head at Amgen, meaning she's in charge of that 75-acre campus they have in West Greenwich. And as we were talking before the break, that is about to have a big expansion as you build this next generation plant. And I wanted to ask you some more details about this. One of the things I hope you can help people understand is what makes it next generation? What's different? I know you built one, I believe, in Singapore, right? The company to test it out. This is the first one in the U.S. or
Correct.
Will be.
Correct. So, Amgen is always, we are an innovative company, right? And so we're looking at ways, how do we bring medicines to our patients faster and in a cost-efficient manner? And one of the limiting steps has always been, how fast can we start up a brand new manufacturing facility? My experience in Rhode Island was that the current existing facility took 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, that was a huge project back when they first built your original building. Right?
Correct. And it's a showpiece. It's a beautiful facility, and it has a lot of stainless steel, yes. A lot of piping. But it takes time to build those facilities. And because there are innovative medicines that we want to get to patients as quickly as possible, Amgen really set forth to define a strategy of what can we do to make that easier. And so, several years ago, Amgen put together this next generation biomanufacturing strategy, which is around looking at innovative technologies that can be brought into a single facility. We are looking at single-use technologies that makes our manufacturing facility simpler to be able to build, smaller footprints to be able to still achieve the expected output. And obviously, we are very committed to environmental sustainability, and so we wanted a facility that was that would allow us to be greener. We wanted to reduce consumptions of energy, water, and so what we've done is taken a lot of those requirements and we brought it together into this next generation space.
And it's interesting because you think of a company like Amgen or any of the big biotech and pharma companies, when you think of innovation, you think of it on the drug side, on the medicine side, but this is actually applying kind of the same effort to advance on the process side.
Yes.
To say, can we improve that before we even get to which medicine we're going to make in that new facility?
Right.
What's the timeline? When do you hope the place will be open and operating?
Yeah, so, we had our groundbreaking July 31st. We plan on starting construction September, so in just a few weeks. And the expectation is that we will begin production processes by early 2020. So this is a very rapid timeline. It is requiring that we are partnering with obviously key key companies and suppliers in the area to be able to hit that aggressive timeline.
State leaders were, no surprise, very excited to have this announcement, to have Amgen choose Rhode Island for this facility. Your CEO, Bob Badway, was here to talk at the announcement. Can you take us behind the scenes a little about this? He and the governor were playing up that this was competitive. Rhode Island was never a cinch to get this. What was the process behind the scenes to decide where this would go?
Sure. So, I think whenever a company is making a decision such as a site, as a site selection, it is ultimately responsible for ensuring that there is a, science-based, data-driven evaluation. So there were many states that were included in the evaluation, looking at, different factors. And I think that, the partnership and the collaboration that we had with the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, the work that Governor Raimondo and her staff did to ensure that some of the concerns or some of the packages that were provided to the company would be competitive in the overall evaluation process. So for us, I think that our ongoing success at Amgen Rhode Island has demonstrated that, one, there is a skilled workforce in the state. We are able to attract and retain the talent that is needed to deliver on these complex manufacturing processes. In addition, we have a great partnership with the universities in Rhode Island. We work very closely on special projects, right? I mean, sometimes they have experts that we want to engage to help us solve problems. They have very talented students that we bring in for internship programs, for new college hire rotation programs. And so there is a great university support system that continues to help us advance our science. And then, third, I think that the quality of life and that the workforce here, want to stay and that they want to continue to contribute to something bigger really became a huge selling point.
You alluded to Amgen and the state agreed to about $9.5 million in tax incentives up to offset the cost. I think you folks are pegging the project up to $200 million investment over time. You know that those sorts of breaks can be controversial. What impact did that have on Amgen's decision making? How much of a difference do those make? Because, people, voters, taxpayers do always want to know, does that make a difference?
It does make a difference because I think, in going through that process, we recognize that every state is putting together incentive programs. The thing about the Rhode Island program is the incentives are, Amgen's only able to achieve those incentives as long as we deliver on the commitments that are made. So, part of that is, we expect to bring 150 jobs to the state as part of this new program, but the incentive package doesn't kick in until we have hired and those staff members are part of our workforce. So for me, the state is not taking a risk because we have to deliver on those commitments before.
It's not the dreaded 38 studios cut a check, not that Amgen would be there, but it's, you have to get to somewhere before you folks earn the incentive.
Right, and we have to demonstrate that we have upheld the agreements.
I have one other question before we go to the break on how this came together, which is you mentioned the new federal tax law also played a role in your company's decision making. How so? What was the effect of that?
Well, I think that the tax reform really provided an environment where companies that were willing to invest in innovative manufacturing capabilities would, be able to utilize, funds to be able to to bring those types of jobs and facilities to the U.S. And so for Amgen, I think that once that reform went into place, it changed, certainly changed the landscape of the particular sites that we were looking at. And
after all, the first one was done in Singapore.
Exactly, and obviously, I think that as part of our site selection for this facility, it did include other foreign sites.
Interesting. So the effects of all those things. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Tia's long career at Amgen. We won't say how long, maybe, and more about her involvement in mentoring. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. We're joined today by Tia Bush. She heads up Amgen's Rhode Island campus in West Greenwich, 75 acres and about to get bigger as they embark on a next generation plant. She's also a vice president at the company. And you have been at Amgen now, I think, is it 25 years, Tia?
Just over 25 years.
What are the biggest changes you've seen in your industry? I'm curious over that time in biotech. It's something we hear about so much.
I think the changes was just really the explosion and the investment in biotechnology. It really does promise, significant advancements in medicine and treating unmet diseases. And I think, even this morning I was reading articles of how the investment in the biotechnology sector continues at a rate that is much more significant than even in other industries. So for me, I worked on one of Amgen's original two medicines, and then, there were only a handful of biotechnology products or biologics when I started at Amgen, and now, there's thousands of biotechnology companies, small to large, but certainly making an impact.
As someone who's close to, we have viewers watching, I'm sure they have in their families maybe diseases that they wish, Alzheimer's comes up a lot, certain cancers that they hope. Do you find being up close, does it give you more hope than maybe the average person that cures are coming? Or do you see how challenging it is to get something that works, gets through FDA approval, gets marketed? Where do you end up on that?
Both places.
A good answer.
I think that, from my standpoint, I'm obviously able to hear about the latest and greatest in the research, and it's encouraging because I think companies like Amgen and others continue to invest a significant amount of money in advancing products. And I think at our groundbreaking, our CEO shared that it's over a $2 billion investment to bring these innovative medicines. And so, for me, it's inspiring that we have scientists and companies that believe in the value and the advancement it can bring. And I think that we have examples where, there have been, significant progress or cures or the improvement of quality of lives for patients. It is very difficult because we have to assure that these medicines are safe. We have to ensure that they meet the rigorous regulatory requirements that are put forth, but it's a lengthy time to do that. So, but it's not something that would discourage me from, wanting to be part of it, because I think that, we have the benefit that the patients come back and talk to us about how we have made a positive impact on their lives. And so for me, just listening to those stories are encouraging, inspirational, and really to me just continues to make a difference of why we do what we do.
I recently interviewed another senior women executive in biotech who said to me, you know, when she got in, she did think it was a little harder as a woman in biotech. It was maybe a very male-dominated industry, though she expressed some hope that that has been changing. I'm curious whether you felt that way when you first got into this, and if you think that has changed.
Yeah. You know, my career has been spent at Amgen, and I have to say that I have had significant support in my career from day one. And so you know, although I think that I have seen over the years more and more women, you know, rising to more significant, higher levels in the company, and so that's very encouraging to me. But I've been fortunate that I've always been part of a company that diversity, inclusion, and the investment in women leadership has always been part of our overall talent strategy. So for me, I'm a product of the work that they have done as a company. And
you've talked about that too, because you do a lot with, you know, a lot of people talk about mentoring. You're involved with a bunch of groups with mentoring. It's certainly been a major extracurricular commitment for you as well as a professional one. Yeah. Can you talk a little about your approach to that? I mean, I'm sure there's a million people who'd love to have you as a mentor, or interview or something. How you approach that and make it valuable?
Well, you know, I think it starts by me first understanding, you know, what have I done in my career to help advance, and how have I become a valuable leader in advancing Amgen's strategy. And I think sometimes, you know, it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and we must deliver on this. But the fact is that I have a lot of experience that I can impart to people, and hopefully they can take just a fraction of that, and it's going to help them to advance their career. I usually approach it by, you know, I have virtual groups that I mentor, meaning that there are women leaders across Amgen's network that once a month we get together, we talk about particular topics, and I share my perspective or I ask them to share theirs, and we discuss as a group, you know, how can we get better. But at the same time, I think it's important for me to be able to share with the future leaders what is it that's going to help them be successful. And sometimes it's just being able to articulate what I did, what I learned, and what I would do differently. And you know, people can then take from that what they need in order to advance in their career.
Well, once the show airs, everyone's going to find your email, all the viewers, and then maybe ask you to impart some of that advice to them if they want it.
Of course.
Tia Bush, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. She is the Vice President and Rhode Island Site Head at Amgen. If you go on our website, WPRI.com, we have a full write-up from the day of that groundbreaking with some more information on what they're planning down there. And remember, if you missed any of this episode of Executive Suite or any others, you can catch all of those on our website, WPRI.com. We'll see you back here next week on Executive Suite.